Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my little monologues. Before I start, I'd just like to say thank you to the people of Glastonbury for coming along to the Avalon Club, in which Clive Edwards, Victoria Rickson and myself were speaking. It was very nice to see all you people, and actually it was something that came from that event that I want to talk about. But before that, I just want to reassure people that emails have come in. People have been ordering my book, The Biggleswick, The Town That Wouldn't Comply, and I am slowly getting there. Excuse, by the way, my scruffy state. I am actually just getting myself ready to go back to Biggleswick Farm, the farm that Julia and I are attempting to do things with, like grow food, be a bit self-sufficient and all those sort of things, as you can see in The English Couple, if you tune in. I think we're up to episode 5 on that. So it's all very exciting. Yes, so we were in Glastonbury and I was there giving a talk really about the land project, what we aim to do, why we're doing it, and a bit about Biggleswick, the book. And of course, running around doing these events and then going off to the farm to try and make the most of when the sun is shining or it's not raining, as it is raining quite a bit at the moment. It means that I'm trying to sort of juggle things like putting books in envelopes and getting them written. People have been buying them and most of them have gone out, but I've got a few that have yet to go to the post office. So probably either today or tomorrow, those books that people have bought will be posted. I just wanted to let people know, that be reassured that your book will get to you, and before Christmas, well before Christmas, in the next week or so. And you've still got time to order one if you want. Anyway, we were given a couple of books, Julia and I, whilst we were there, and it gave me a thought. So let me just show you what the books are. The first book was a book here, this one, and it's called The Dominance Theory, A Guide to Elevating Your Fifth Dimension of Self. Now that might be a bit woo-woo for a lot of people because it talks about the spirit and the soul and various things. I haven't had a chance to read it as yet. It was just thrust into my hands as a gift, and I thank you very much to the lady who did that. This is by Dr. Margot McKinnon, PhD. I don't think that was the lady who wrote it, and I can't remember the lady's name who gave it to me. It was all a bit of a whirlwind, really. Anyway, that was one book, and the second book is What Are Your Dreams Trying to Tell Me? And that's by Roseanne Jacks. And thank you, Roseanne. She did give it to me and she did sign in it. So yeah, and it's you know, tells you what your dreams mean. And I'm going to talk a bit about this sort of stuff, but I am not, you know, I'm not knocking the authors of these books by any means. So what I want to really say is, you know, sometimes for example, let's talk about dreams. I want to talk about dreams because I had a very vivid dream last night, actually, which is what made me think, oh yeah, I was given a book about that. How strange. And this dream that I had, for the sake of my discussion, was I got on a bus, and in the bus it had these LED screens, or video screens, you know, TV screens, where the windows were. And where those windows were, you would drive through a town, and the idea was it would see what that town was like in the 1930s. So it would do a bit like, I think you can go back on Google Images, can't you, or Google something, and you can get the maps, and you can see what it looked like at certain points in history. But this was you're supposed to be in this bus driving around. Anyway, we went around a little place that I used to live in years ago, and of course it wasn't the place that I used to live in the way that in real life it was. It was a version of it, only it was much bigger. It was like a bigger town instead of this little village that I stayed in for a couple of years. And then, of course, it turned from being screens as windows to actually being in a real bus driving along and looking out the window into the 1930s. So it's somehow in the dream, you know, they change. There I was in the 1930s peering out. Now the colour, the thing that struck me firstly was it wasn't the place I thought it was, and you could see ruins of buildings that were no longer ruins, they were actually there. People going around in 1930s garb, beautiful houses. But the colours was as if you were watching a 1940s, 50s film where the saturation, the Kodachrome colour was, you know, like on transparencies that you might have got when you were younger, when the colour was a bit oversaturated. It was very, you know, very clear. Anyway, that was the dream. There was much more to it than that. And I woke up this morning, I was telling Julia about the dream, and, you know, we were saying, oh, well, what does it mean? Does it mean anything? Does it mean anything? And how does anybody know whether it does mean anything? And then, of course, I thought about the book that I was given, and I've got a number of books on dreams, because at one point I was quite interested, can you ask your dreams a question and come back with an answer? And various books would say, oh yes, this is how you can get, you know, the $1 million answer to the lottery numbers, or this, you know, what you should be doing in life. You can focus your attention over there, and then at night time you come back with a dream. And there's lots of books on all of this. And I asked myself, how do you know? How do these people know that that is the thing? And the same with when you're talking about the spirit and the self and the soul and all these sort of things, or even, you know, related to any of these things. I guess you could sit there and go, where's the proof? How do you know? How does anybody know all of these things are true? And are they, you know, I mean, at least this one here that says it's the dominance theory about the, you know, the body, the mind and the soul, and it's a theory, and it's not saying this is ipso facto absolutely 100% genuine, and that, at least that's good. At least somebody's saying it's a theory. But there's so many people out there who will say, no, this is the answer, this is how it is. And I wonder, and the real part of this is not so much about dreams and things and how they know, but is it us? And it comes back to something I talk about a hell of a lot, that we've lost contact with ourselves, that we no longer feel that we're able to sit quietly and ask ourselves questions and allow inspiration, I suppose you could say divine messages, people call them downloads. I don't like that term because it's too much towards the digital world, but that we've lost that ability to almost think for ourselves, that we always have to go to somebody else and say, what does this mean? Not so much in knowledge of, I don't know, you know, you might want to know how to build a wall or how to build a garden shed or whatever, you know, where you need knowledge and you have no knowledge. But I'm talking about knowledge that is sort of very difficult to prove and is innate, I suppose, innate in ourselves. Our lives are so busy that we don't sit down, we don't talk, or we don't almost talk to ourselves and listen. And I mentioned this in a video the other day, the inner voice. And I think this is a very important thing that people are missing. And I noticed, you know, barely anybody watches those sort of videos when you start talking about this sort of stuff. They all want to be frightened. People want to be scared, don't they? They want somebody else to tell them some terrible news, and they'll watch the videos, or they'll prick up their ears. But when it's anything to do with, I suppose, you trying to improve yourself and understand yourself and be self-reliant, people are very scared. And I think this is where it comes to. The message that I'm trying to sort of find in this talk, where I'm going all over the place, is that people are very scared to come to a conclusion themselves, that they need somebody to validate things for them. We've become so reliant on somebody else telling us what is true and what is correct. You know, what does the BBC say about this? Because if the BBC say this, then that's the golden truth. What does it say in the Bible about such and such? Because if it's in the Bible, it's got to be true. People have lost that ability. And by the way, I'm not saying that either of those are completely wrong in the instance that they're talking about. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that we do seem to need to go somewhere else for validation, that we no longer, it's almost as if a lot of people, certainly, no longer trust themselves or can come to a conclusion. They need fact checkers. During the COVID period, and I was talking to my eldest son about things that were going on, And he would say, hang on a minute, Dad, let me just check it. And he would go to fact checkers to see whether what I was saying was true or not. And it was as if I can't consider your opinion anymore without seeing what somebody else's opinion actually is. And then I'll take their opinion because I can't do it myself. And that's, for me, is the worry. And now we have AI. And people are treating that as God, and they're saying, I've got a special relationship, or I managed to trick it, or I'm, and people are, again, relying on something for the most minute things. They no longer rely on themselves. And I think this is the big problem. This is the worry for a society, for a community, for a group of people, for a landmass that we live on, that we're always looking for someone else for guidance, whether it's on esoteric subjects and spirituality and those sort of things. Somebody else has got to tell us what is right and wrong, what is true and false. And we've lost the ability to say, actually, no, this is true. I know it's true because I know it's true. I have sat quietly, I've thought about it, I've come and I'm convinced, and I'm standing on my own judgment. People are nervous, aren't they, about standing on their own judgment. They need to be validated, and this is, and I guess that's down to a lot of brainwashing. It's down to the society that we find ourselves in, and I think that perhaps if we were to go back, or you find a tribe across the world that's unaffected by the modern world and the influences of the mainstream media, particularly, and that sort of upbringing, we would find that people are a lot more certain about what life means and what perhaps their dreams mean, or where the soul is and what they need to do spiritually, or how they live. Ultimately, what I'm getting at is, once they are standing on their judgment and they're not worried about what anybody else thinks, that's where I think an element of contentment, happiness and personal oneness is, instead of constantly having to go, is this right? Should I be doing this? Do I need permission? Am I allowed to say that? Can I stand here? Can I breathe? Is it all right to live? And this is what I think we've found, that people are now just jelly. They're wobbling because they can't stand in their own judgment. They don't know themselves anymore. They don't know whether they are right and whether they are going to go forward, and be prepared to make mistakes. People are too nervous and they're having to follow the herd. And I wonder if that's you. Do you feel like that sometimes, that, oh, I daren't do this because I've lost that self-motivation to do something for myself? And perhaps that's where we need to get back to. Perhaps we need to withdraw from the nonsense that's out there and find ourselves again, so that we can come back into the world stronger and a lot more certain and confident, and most importantly, happy with ourselves and the life that we lead. Thank you very much.